I go to like the forensic aspect, the smell of a body that's been rotting for 2 months is horrific. And it kind of probably shows you how disgusting that place was.
Oh, how neglecting it was to everybody, even the staff. I mean,
yeah,
just
that
crazy.
nobody noticed the smell. It probably just blended in with everything else.
Healthcare horrors. Murder.
Welcome back. It's time for another episode of Healthcare Horrors. I am Ashley Boyce, a brand specialist.
I'm Alicia Carasella, a training and development specialist.
And we have a guest. I'm Dolan on the knobs.
Yes, today we have a guest. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
I am Stacy Paschoal. Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited and nervous to be here. But I am a recruiter here at Atlas. I've been here a little over a year now. But prior to this, I actually worked in a crime lab for almost 15 years. So This is kind of my thing.
Thank you for volunteering. Let's talk about the crime lab stuff a little bit. Like, how did you even get into that?
Were you an NCIS fan, like, growing up?
You know what? I watched the CSI shows prior to getting into it, so probably more my high school years. But it was something I always wanted to do. It's what I went to college for. And I go back, and when I was maybe 12 or 13, I read the autobiography of John Walsh. And I was pretty like moved by that, where his son was kidnapped and murdered. And kind of like full circle, he actually came to the police department I worked at and recorded an episode there. So I was like, oh, that's kind of career, highlight of my career. I worked in a city that was majority gang related. So it was a lot of drive-by shootings, stuff like that. And I have to be careful because I'm actually still subject to being subpoenaed because not all my cases have gone through the court system. And probably, I shouldn't say the best murder case because that sounds wrong, but the most interesting, the most interesting is not gone to court. So maybe we in another couple years circle back to that because that was not gang related. It involved torture, which was very unusual in our city. Yeah.
Okay, can you say the city? Where are you remote recruiting from?
I am in Orange County, California. I will not say the city I worked for yet.
Okay, cool.
Fair enough.
Just being in Orange County, you probably see a lot. So,
It was definitely not Newport Beach. I can say that.
Fair enough.
Cool. Well, thank you for joining us. Last time we talked about the Royal Hope Hospital, and recruiter Sarah Renee Smith was on that episode. So if anyone's interested in learning about Royal Hope and Florida, listen to that episode.
Yeah, check it out. It's on all places that you listen to podcasts.
Hey.
Yeah. Today, what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, or we can call it TALA for short, a.k.a. Weston State Hospital. It's got a lot of names.
Alicia did look up how to pronounce it, so Allegheny is what we're going with.
Trans-Allegheny.
Yeah.
Trans-Allegheny. Okay, we got it.
You got it.
All right, now, but there's another word that's hard to pronounce, and everyone else pronounces it differently. So we're just going to start with, it's located in Weston, West Virginia, which is buried in the what mountains?
The Smoky Mountains?
No.
Darn. No, that's
starts
North
with
Carolina.
an A.
The Appalachia.
Appalachian? Or is it
Appalachian.
Appalachian? How do you say it?
It's Appalachia.
I say
it's where the big trail goes through, right?
Yeah, it's
the
Appalachia.
Trail?
The only reason I know this is because for some reason it started showing up, like the correct pronunciation of these mountains started showing up in my TikTok. And it was everybody from the area who lives in the Appalachian Mountains saying, guys, it's not Appalachian, it's Appalachian.
Okay.
So now we know.
Do we?
Yes.
If it was on TikTok, then it's true.
Yes.
So it's buried in the Appalachian Mountains. So Trans-Allegheny opened in 1864. It was authorized to be built and opened by the Virginia General Assembly in the early 1850s. Construction began in the late in late 1858, and the work was initially conducted by prison laborers. Skilled stonemasons were later brought from Germany and Ireland to work on the building.
Is this where we can nerd out on it? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, did you read why they stopped with the convicts?
No.
Oh, okay. So they said if you saw the first building, which was very interested, I'm guessing they were doing it for aesthetics, but they were using this blue stone, but it wasn't local and it had to be, I drove in, shipped in, whatever, daily to do it. And with that was a lot of downtime. So they were saying that 1 to 2 convicts who were out on work release, and they were not even skilled laborers, just free labor, were escaping. So they had too many convicts escaping daily. And that's why they eventually went to skilled laborers after, I guess, the state stepped in and said, this is a little ridiculous.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't know that. But I mean, I feel like I maybe might use that as an opportunity for myself as well if I was just out building a building every day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So once we got in the skilled laborers, it became one of the largest hand-cut stone masonry buildings in North America and possibly the second largest in the world, along with the Kremlin in Moscow, Russia. So I thought that was kind of cool. This building is huge, and it looks so freaking cool.
Yeah, it was massive.
Yeah. The architect was Richard Andrews, and he was known for Gothic Revival and Tudor Revival styles. And then he also used the Kirkbride plan, if you want to talk about the Kirkbride plan.
I sure do. So the Kirkbrides are a design advocated by American psychiatrist Thomas Kirkbride in the mid-19th century. The structural features of the hospitals as designated by Kirkbride were contingent on his theories regarding the healing of the mentally ill, in which environment and exposure to natural light and air circulation were crucial. The hospitals built according to the Kirkbride plan would adopt various architectural styles, but had in common the batwing style floor plan, housing numerous wings that sprawl outward from the center. Mm-hmm. Numerous Kirkbride structures still exist, though many have been demolished or partially demolished and repurposed.
Yeah, so you have like your center structure, and then it's just like staggered wings on either side. It's supposed to like let in sunlight to each room and stuff. So I feel like we've talked about Thomas Kirkbride and Dorothea Dix in a previous episode, and I was trying to look up what episode it was, if it was Penhurst or Waverly Hills, because Waverly Hills was also a huge building. Mm-hmm. And Kirkbride was in Pennsylvania, and that's where Penhurst was. So I don't know. But I know we talked about them, and they're kind of like revolutionary in the mental illness development.
So that was definitely something like a little shocking, because it looks like he was highly regarded in psychiatry. And I think he was one of the leaders of what became the APA, American Psychiatric Association. Mm-hmm. And all his intentions were good, but a little fun fact was that the Trans-Allegheny, did I say it right?
Allegheny.
You're close.
Gainey.
You're close.
Close. It was built on 666 acres.
That's what so I was doing so much research, and I did not see that initially, Stacy. And when I saw that, I was like, 666? Are you kidding me? Like, this is haunted.
It's just not a good sign.
No.
I know you're meant to be haunted if you do that, but it was funny because in some of his guidelines it was changed to minimum like 100 acres. So everything about him and his intentions seemed really like noble and well thought out, and his patients were, at the top of his thoughts for all of this. But it's ironic of what it became, essentially.
Yes, and we'll talk about how it ended up that way. So the asylum's layout was designed to be open and airy so the patients would have a lot of sunlight and fresh air, and it was originally designed to house 250 patients. It was also intended to be a self-sufficient facility, yes, with a farm, dairy, waterworks, and even a cemetery located on its grounds.
And a railway.
And its own railway.
Wow. What do you, like full on railway?
Probably to
Or,
like
like-
bring in supplies
I
and
would.
Okay,
stuff.
gotcha.
Dolan, we're probably going to discuss a part where I feel bad for you because being the only male right now, you're going to have a little defending of your gender.
Can you hear that,
Probably do.
Stacy?
No, that's okay.
There's a thunderstorm going on
Happening.
right now. I don't know if you can hear the thunder, but
It's
it's
so loud.
spooky.
It's like 80 something degrees here in Orange County right now.
Ooh.
Like blue
Wow.
skies.
It was beautiful here yesterday, like over the weekend. Did you?
It's Whittingham that has the railway.
Okay.
So we lied. It's not this one.
My
So
bad.
there is no railway on this.
I got
That's okay.
confused. Got
No,
them
that's
mixed
okay.
up.
So, okay. It was originally designed to house 250 patients in solitude. The hospital held 717 patients by 1880, over 1,600 in 1938, over 1,800 in 1949, and at its peak, 2,600 patients in the 1950s in very overcrowded conditions. Which meant that the staff was outnumbered and the living conditions were deteriorating. And somewhere in all of this, in 1913, Trans-Allegheny changed its name to Weston State Hospital. So over the years, Trans-Allegheny became home to many people, and not all of them were due to mental health reasons. People were admitted for asthma. Women who did not listen to their husbands were admitted. In fact, a man could just drop off his wife for no reason other than wanting to be with his mistress and get his wife out of the way. Tuberculosis, laziness, egotism, and greediness were also listed among the reasons that anyone could become a patient.
You said
Ridiculous.
egotists?
Yes.
So if
If you're egotistical, you and someone
you
says,
become a patient.
so I say, hey, Dolan,
Wow.
I think you're very egotistical. And you say, whatever. And then I say, well, enjoy your life at Weston State Hospital.
But
Okay.
you're
Tell her.
forgetting like the really like interesting fact, and this is where Dolan probably should defend his gender, is that it was any adult male could put in any female family member for any reason, but women could not submit or I don't know admit females there or males. I'm sorry, they couldn't do that. It was only males who had that control.
What?
And the downside of this is the same one who put you in is the only one who could get you out. So it said that they would put somebody in, maybe they would by chance die in an accident,
That's
a
what I
heart
was gonna
attack,
ask.
something, and then you're stuck there for life. And they said any kids born in there, especially because they hit a lot of born out of wedlock kids in there, spent their entire lives because the men wouldn't come check them out or
That's so sad.
anything like that. Yeah, but only men had that control, not women.
I don't think I would defend that. It's pretty messed up, honestly.
That's probably a good stance for you to take.
Dolan's he's a pretty good egg.
I'm okay.
But Sammy
sometimes.
would-
But an egg, nonetheless.
Sammy would yell at you if you tried putting her in there.
Oh
Sammy
man,
would bite you.
I would be missing. How about that?
You would. Okay. So also among patients admitted there were epileptics, alcoholics, and drug addicts.
Even if you had different political views, you could be admitted.
Wow,
Yeah,
this is crazy.
Anything.
Scary.
It's like the Salem witch trials. If you could do math,
Except
you're
for
a witch.
it's just for people who you don't like.
yeah.
Right.
A series of reports by the Charleston Gazette in 1949 noted the poor sanitation and insufficient furniture, lighting, and heating throughout the majority of the facility. There was one wing of the facility that was super nice comparatively to the rest, but it was set ablaze by a patient in 1935. There were a ton of people in this facility, which meant issues occurring among the patients. Patients were setting fires, an attempted hanging, which led to a murder with a bed frame. A nurse even went missing. The missing nurse was later found dead at the bottom of a set of unused stairs. So the lack of proper care and access to sanitation led to a large number of deaths at the facility. And the official count of patients who have died at the asylum is unknown.
Jeez.
But, yeah, a Weston State Hospital expert and historian Titus Swan, also a great name, estimates the number to be at or above the 5-figure range of people who have died on those grounds.
So I actually had notes on both the murders you mentioned. The one with the bed frame, I guess it went down as one of the most gruesome at the asylum, only because when it started overcrowding, which it said at one point the patient ratio was 248 to 1, which is insane.
Insanity.
That's you're not even taking care of people at that point.
No.
Like
You're not.
You're picking your favorite 5 and forgetting about the other 230. Like that's
Exactly. And
crazy.
they said though, but because of this and the overcrowding, you had the violent and the non-violent being mixed together in rooms. And that's what happened with this bed frame one. And they said it was, which the names are very indicative of the time, but Joe and Big Jim. That's what they were known as.
Big Jim.
And they were the violent ones. And there was, I've heard him be called 2 names, Charlie or Dean. So I'm not really sure what his name was, but he was a very docile one who was deaf and handicapped and had like the mental capacity of a child. And because of that, he was very friendly, trying to make friends. And they did not like this. So apparently they ended up in a room together. And they did not like his friendly behavior, trying to be friends. They considered it annoying. So they beat him. And after that is when they tried to do the hanging, but they did it in more of like a torture way where they would hang him from the pipe. He'd lose consciousness, bring him back down, put him back up, after he woke up. But ultimately they couldn't kill him. And that's when they got the metal bed frame, placed it on his head and bounced on it until it crushed his skull.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's
but with,
insanity, genuinely.
The nurse that wasn't found for 2 months, like, I go to like the forensic aspect, the smell of a body that's been rotting for 2 months is horrific. And it kind of probably shows you how disgusting that place was.
Well, how neglecting it was to everybody, even the staff. I mean,
yeah, that crazy. Nobody noticed the smell. It probably just blended in with everything else.
Sick.
Gross.
I will comment. I love how all 3 of us, Dolan, you're not included, Stacy, Ashley, and I all did research, and we all came up with different things, right? Like, so obviously we're all telling the same story, but we all have different facts and tidbits, and I just think that's so cool.
Is there that much on this place?
So much.
Oh my gosh. I could have watched hours and hours more or read articles. I want to order books off of it. It's like on my to visit list now.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's not a ton of details. Like it's more, and I'm guessing because nobody was keeping records because the patient ratio was high, but they said there was a kid that killed, or like a teenager who killed 5 kids prior to even that being noticed. So you literally have patients disappearing and nobody noticing.
How could you notice if you don't even know who's there?
Right.
And there's like 5 staff members.
Yeah.
But did you hear that the staff was required to remain on site? Like they live there as well?
I didn't know that. It's crazy.
That's so weird that Dolan didn't know.
I didn't know that.
But you're kind of then getting a blend where they're kind of going crazy. They said it's like was a prison, and you have legit people who probably weren't crazy when they went in, got crazy because of the conditions, and then the staff almost going crazy as well.
Yes. Well, how could you not?
That explains kind of maybe how somebody went missing for 2 months, though. I mean, if they're...
It was an actual madhouse.
Wow.
In the 1950s, the hospital was home to the West Virginia Lobotomy Project.
Yeah, so let's get into some of the mental illness treatments.
So the intention was to use lobotomies to reduce the number of patients in asylums due to overcrowding. And I'll let you tell them how many lobotomies were performed
by
there.
Killing them or by fixing them?
By
both.
By removing their prefrontal cortex so that they could no longer cause issues.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So I saw a fact, or I saw somewhere in the research that at the facility they started experimenting with lobotomies and performed over 4,000 lobotomies. And then they started using a drug called Thorazine, which was used to treat psychotic disorders, but it also just kept the patients in a catatonic state so they couldn't fight back. They weren't You know, it wasn't hard to take care of them if they're just sitting there. And then they would also start experimenting with insulin shock treatment and electroshock therapy, which could put patients into comas. So what else did you...
And they lock people in cages.
Yeah, lock people up, you know, probably shackles, just tie them down, straitjackets.
Do either of you guys have like the official description of what orbital lobotomy is?
Nope, you're welcome to.
We did
Oh, I don't have like
I was
the
going to say we
official-
have. Yeah, so what it does is it's the aim is to cause damage to your prefrontal cortex, and they do that through your eye socket. Because your feelings, your emotions, all of that is just, it's all housed here. It's like all your critical thinking, and if you can't think for yourself, well, then you're just hanging out.
Yeah, we've done a whole episode on Walter Freeman and his lobotomies and kind of the evolution of lobotomies, and then eventually the ice pick lobotomies, because it was just a handy little tool that people could have around if they needed to fix someone's mental state, you know.
I mean, the fact that you're using an ice pick and a hammer for a medical procedure is horrifying. And if you saw the pictures, like, that kind of went along with it, it's almost like you hear it and you're like, okay, but then you see like an image of how they do it and it's like, oh my God.
Absolutely. No, it's disgusting.
Is he the one that did them then at the asylum?
That's what I was going to ask. Was this around the same
think this
time, and
was-
was it Walter?
Well, it was like around the same time, but he wasn't at this facility specifically. But I mean, once he started lobotomies and word started getting around that this was a procedure, like every single mental institution or asylum started doing
Practicing
lobotomies.
I just couldn't remember the doctor's name that did him there, but I did know that it said that he was not like surgically qualified or
yeah,
sure
or
not.
to do them.
So I'll just give you I just wanted to give you the definition, the official. So it's, what you do is insert a long, thin instrument, which is modeled after an ice pick, to pierce the brain via the patient's eye socket. The transorbital lobotomy is what it's called. And let's see. I'm like, it doesn't say, what did it do to you? What does it do? It says it helps with schizophrenia. But it's severing the connection between your frontal lobe and the other parts of your brain.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
But in reality, it just made him more messed up.
yes, 100%.
Yep.
It would just give them brain damage, and some patients would go through several lobotomies. Like if it didn't work the first time, they would do it again.
I mean, I was the doctor not on site seeing all this, or it was just so chaotic he wasn't paying attention because all the treatment was inhumane, and that's literally what his guidelines and stances were like completely the opposite of. So it's like, did he ever truly know, or at that point he just felt like he had no control over the asylum?
I have no idea.
I feel like he wouldn't know. I mean, if the ratio is 1 to 248, right?
I mean, he knows it's bad.
Well, yeah, I'm sure he knows it's bad, but I'm sure he's trying to like pick up the pieces. So I'm sure whoever he saw or like whatever he was trying to do, he was just trying to pick up the sticks, most likely.
But what's crazy is it was actually open for a long time. I think it was like 130 years.
Wow.
And
Open for
if
a
they
very
were
long
saying
time.
like the chaos was at the peak in the 1950s, that means it was still open another 40 years after they reached
Well,
that.
if we've learned anything from doing this show, hospitals are really good at covering things up.
Very good.
Yeah.
But also
Which
at
is
this
probably-
point in time, they don't know that, they don't know that everything they're doing is inhumane because they think it's actually going to help. You know, there's still so much experimenting going on. So,
Or you know what? Did he already pass away? Do we know who took over?
Let's look
I don't
this
have
up
names.
real quick.
I don't know. Dolan.
jeez.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking. Dolan, look that up. So,
Okay.
the governor at the time, West Virginia Governor Arch Moore, wanted to convert the facility into a prison and build a new mental health facility somewhere else. The state found the move to be unconstitutional, and the move did not happen. However, the new facility was built, and it was named William R. Sharp Jr. Hospital. And the old Weston State Hospital did not close until May of 1994.
And once it did close, the only expansion that they did make that they didn't really plan on making when they first built the facility was a cemetery.
Okay,
And
so
they changed their name back
Did
What-
they?
to the lunatic. Yeah, it said once it closed, they changed. I think it said
now
1913 is when they
Trans-Allegheny.
changed it. Yeah, but for probably what is it purposes, to make it a hot spot to come visit.
Mm-hmm.
So it says that Dr. Thomas Kirkbride
Well,
died in 1883. So that I'm assuming there's a bunch of people that took over after.
he helped influence the layout of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Like
was
the
he never the
architecture.
one in charge there?
I don't think so.
And
no.
Walter Freeman did work there.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So Walter Freeman,
Look at you helping us out.
he became his experiment ground,
Oh,
as one nurse
for
recalls, in
lobotomy
1939.
Okay. So he was doing the lobotomies.
Cool.
That's like...
And James Watts. James Watts and Walter Freeman were
Yeah,
both there.
I remember James Watts.
Mm-hmm.
And if we even rewind a little bit, so the facility was built on 666 acres of land. As the facility and everything is, in full swing, there's a lot of terrible things happening. But even before, or as it was being constructed, that was also during the Civil War. So add that to the history and the heaviness, and the soil is being soaked with blood from the military and the battles, some battles that happened there. I don't think a lot of battles happened there, but
They took on a lot of patients, I do believe.
took on a lot of patients, military and civilians, while they were constructing the building. It was even used as barracks for some of the military members. They used clothes from the facility that were supposed to be set aside for patients. They used food that was supposed to be set aside for the first round of patients. And what else did you
Are
have?
you saying for the war?
Yeah,
that they
during
did
the
this for?
Civil War.
Because
Yeah.
I read something about the bank wanting their money back
Yeah.
but they said it was unconstitutional or whatever. But I also saw that the veterans that were coming there were actually not treated well at all. And they were secluded from the general population. And I'm not sure if that was like just a disrespect to the military, where like they weren't liking them, or if there were some other issues. But from what I saw, that they were not favorable to the veterans.
So Weston branch of the Exchange Bank of Virginia was near the facility, and there was maybe $30,000 worth of gold there. And the bank was raided by a Union military branch to ensure that the money wasn't turned over to the rebellion. And a lot of the money that was at that bank was also set aside to pay for the wages for the staff that was going to be at the facility. But once the facility did open, it kind of became the primary economic resource for the town. So that town didn't really experience any post-war depression. It was the breadwinner of the town, basically. But once it closed, there was something about the money once the facility closed.
Was this all a state-funded facility, or was this considered private back then, where people were paying to keep their loved ones there? I'm not sure about any of that.
I guess I'm not really sure about that either.
Yeah, I don't think I have any notes on that. I just know that it was authorized to be built by the Virginia General Assembly.
But can you imagine them getting that bill if they're like, okay, we'll take care of 250 patients, and then all of a sudden they're at 2,600?
There was probably a bit of both. There was probably some state funding, and then I would imagine some people had to pay to keep their loved ones there. But then it just was probably a free-for-all, just take this person. And obviously food rations were not the greatest. One of the many things, living conditions, it was cold. You know, the windows were starting to mold over, the wallpaper was peeling, you know, there wasn't enough clothing, bedding, furniture for everyone, so people were sleeping on the floor, things like that.
There's probably a lot of under the table stuff going on too.
Yeah.
Like you see a rich person and you like, oh, like maybe, you know, you charge them. You see someone's obviously poor, you know,
Get
charge
rid
them
of
less.
my crazy aunt, please. Or
Yeah.
You know, there was something that, I mean, the reasons were all fairly laughable for why you could put someone in there.
Yeah.
Alicia will probably appreciate this one. I'm not sure if you guys have kids. I know Alicia has a son. I have two boys. And it was saying that, like, once the son turned 18, so he's now an adult. And, like, let's say he gets married and him and his new wife decide that, hey, mom has a nice house. She has a nice car.
Oh my God,
and I
they can
kind
just
of
drop
want
us
it.
off.
Yep, they go because they can do that to any female in the family. And I was like, I could totally see my older son doing that to me. Not my younger one,
my gosh.
but my older one, to be like, she's got a nice house.
No.
Terrible.
Forrest better never. I treat him so well.
Should we get into some of the haunting stuff?
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's do it.
It is spooky season after all.
The thunder is definitely helping with the mood. Okay, so there are some specific hauntings. Obviously, just your general, you know, coldness in the room or hearing people talk or scream. But the back room is, so it's a room toward the back end of one wing. A patient was murdered there by two others. They attempted to hang him, but that failed. This is the one that you were talking about, Stacy, when they jumped on the bed frame on his head, and that's how he died. So other patients were also murdered in cold blood by their peers, as overcrowding, mental illness, and poor care became a lethal combination for aggression. This room specifically, though, is known for its cold spots and quiet cries, which is said to be Dean, the man who was murdered in his room. So the guy who was the nice guy. They had isolation cells. The asylum staff were empowered to send their patients into isolation if they were deemed uncontrollable. This, of course, was up to the discretion of the staff that was already irritated and overworked. Isolation was so terrible that patients would do just about anything to get out of it. A former boxer who suffered from head injuries during his career that left him violent and emotionless attempted to beat down the metal door that isolated him. He ended up ripping the door off its hinges, leaving visible dents in the steel. When he finally got the door off, he handed it to one of the nurses and calmly returned to his room. The rooms used most for isolation tend to have violent energies attached to them, with visitors reporting being pushed or scratched, as well as disembodied voices saying, "Get me out of here." Other hauntings at the asylum include more than a few ghosts who are known to staff, including Lily, a playful and friendly child spirit who is believed to have spent her entire life at the hospital. Other experiences include dark shadows, objects moving on their own, the voices and cries, bangs on the walls, breaking glass, etc.
Are we a group of believers here,
I am.
Yes.
Dolan?
I'm skeptical.
He is very...
You know, if you say no, you're the ones they come after.
He's the
I believe that's
skeptic.
my theory.
I believe that too, Stacy. 100%. I believe that too.
You're the skeptic,
that
but you wouldn't
goes
go
anyway.
into a haunted place.
Yeah, listen, if I don't believe in it, then
You think it can't get you?
it can't get me. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm the opposite. Like, I don't want them to come prove me wrong. And I tell my kids that. But, you know, despite my background, I actually am terrified of, like, haunted houses, like the fake ones. I'll do history stuff like this. I would never do it at night. Like, when I was looking up some of these ghost stories and you see some of these people who are sleeping there overnight, I'm like, you're insane. But I came across a good one, which I guess she was like a tour guide there for a while. And so she finally had to leave for the mental break, because I guess it's exhausting and everything. But I guess some of these people use what is called spirit boxes, and it scans for high radio frequency. And that's supposedly where you're supposed to be able to communicate with the deceased. So she was in a room where she is connected to the spirit box with noise canceling headphones. And then her friend is standing next to her. And she said about like 20 minutes went by. It was nothing, nothing, nothing. And all of a sudden, and so what you're supposed to do though is if you hear something come through, you say the word out loud. So the other people with you are knowing what you're getting in communication. So she hears evil. And so she says evil out loud. And I guess her friend looks at her and was like, we got to get out of here now. And they ran out. And once they were, I guess, in a safer area where they felt better, the friend said, let me tell you like how that just connected. So the one without the headphones said she was hearing shuffling noises like outside of the room in the hallway. So she said out loud, are you friendly? To which her friend answered, evil. And that's why they took off.
I have
Something like
goosebumps.
that
That's
would
creepy.
scare the
Scared.
bejesus out of me.
100%.
Alicia, let's do
I would probably
that.
never sleep again.
I will do it with you, Ashley.
Okay. Do you want to be the one wearing the headphones or not?
Yeah, I want to be the one in the headphones. I don't want to know what's out externally
I
happening.
have to listen to all the weird noises and psych myself out.
Yeah.
Ooh.
But I was
God.
wondering if it was the person answering or if it was like another one being like, they're evil, get out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So because you hear
Get
some
out.
are friendly there.
No. So I'm going to use that as a bit of a segue, though, talking about a tour guide. So this day and age, did you have any more about hauntings?
Nope, you're good.
So right now, the building is still standing, the deteriorating building, and it's a registered National Historic Landmark, and they do have a website. I kind of want to go visit it too, but you can do ghost tours or you can do just regular historic tours as well. So I would totally go there. I would want to do the historic tour first and then do the ghost tour. So.
But did you see the amount of events they have now starting in October going through,
So
I think,
many.
early November?
They have like
Yeah.
balls there, dances, like movies.
It's like a full-on thing, huh?
Yeah.
They had a flea
Yeah.
market.
I mean, it's a beautiful building, so why not celebrate the history and the ghosts? As long as you're being respectful, that's just always my main thing. So,
You know, if we ever get Dolan on a haunted tour, then we've done what we need to do.
Look,
Will you not go on that?
I have, so I've done a ghost tour and I've done stuff before. It's not exciting for me.
I bet we could make it exciting.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. To further detail, so last year when we did this, we had, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for forgetting his name. He taught us about plant ghosts.
Jason Offit.
Jason Offit. We had a guest on, and he kind of explained ghosts in a way that made a lot of sense to me, which is just like, it's just a science we don't understand yet. And so I think that's kind of where I align with everything. It's like, okay, there's probably
the code to get into the house. So a couple officers went over, punched in the code after they got it. And sure enough, I mean, there is a dead body. And it was something like where this guy had been like kidnapped as well, who had witnessed it, escape, called the police, which went to another police department, but they thought he was just drunk, because he was hiding in a trash can, so they couldn't find him. But the body had been there a few days. And I can remember when I got that call, it was my very first homicide of, let me do the years. I think it was 2020. And so it was probably like January 3rd, my first day going back onto I did the 12.5-hour shifts too. And I was day shift at that point. And I think I got a call at like 1 a.m. And they were just like, hey, we've been on this homicide. We need some extra help. Can you get up and come in? Because typically I didn't start till 5. So I was like, sure, like let me shower. I'll get on my way. And I remember texting my friend who works in the lab with me. I was like, inside or outside? And he's like, inside. I was like, thank God, because it's California freezing, but freezing for me.
Sure.
Cold. And then I got there and the smell, like, I don't know if anybody has smelled old blood sitting around going bad. It's horrific. So I can remember walking in and being like, oh, I cursed myself. Like, I would give anything for this to be outside right now. But the decomposing bodies or something else. I mean, I used to put the Vicks in my nose, which you have some people who say it traps the smell. I say it temporarily blocks it until you can go home and take an hour shower. Because, dead body smell sticks into your hair like cigarette smoke.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It was definitely an interesting career.
Yeah.
Recruiting is so much lighter, isn't it?
That's why I say all the time, I was like, when people say like, maybe somebody is like mean, or I was like, you don't know what mean is. Like, you don't know what difficult working conditions are. Like, to me, I'm finally dealing with decent people and not criminal.
Yeah.
I bet it brings a lot of unique conversations in with maybe some of your travelers too. Like, do you get into the nitty gritty of like bodily?
You know what?
Fluids.
I only bring it up if they ask, how long have you been a recruiter? And then, a lot of people are like, ooh, only like over a year. And I was like, but I did work prior to this. It's not like I'm just some random person who's never had like work experience. I consider myself having to be somewhat intelligent for working in that job. And so I'm like, don't worry. Well, thank you. I learned from the best in training.
Well, I hear from a lot of like nurses and travelers and stuff, like, just dealing with death every day. Like, I'm sure you kind of understand what that feels like, 100%. and you can connect with your travelers who do have to deal with that every day, which brings a unique quality in a recruiter, I think, which is pretty cool.
It's actually why I left, was the burnout. And it was, like I said, the 12.5-hour shifts. My first 8 years at the police department, I did graveyard, so that's 6 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. And I even did that 8 weeks after having my first baby.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I was nights, holidays, weekends, everything. And at some point, like, and this just comes down to like, and I don't want to offend anybody, but, being a mom and being a worker, and I wanted to choose what was more important to me, because for me, it was getting too hard to be the mom I wanted to be. Yeah. So I ultimately left. And did I take a pay cut? Yes, I did. But I have never been like happier. I don't miss anything with my kids, with my friends, like anything. And it was almost like a weight off my shoulder. And I still have a lot of friends at the PD, and they'll be like, you just look happier. And I was like,
aw.
You made the right
am.
choice.
I did.
Amazing.
So,
That's
and
so
now
sweet.
I get to
What
provide
happened?
expert testimony for free, which I am a little bitter about.
Yeah, I would be bitter too. I'd be like, can I get an hourly wage?
Because now I'm just a witness instead of an employee. So I was like, well, that didn't work out how I thought it would.
Well, that was really cool insight.
Definitely.
Oh my goodness. We definitely need to have you on the podcast again. Maybe if there's like kind of a gross person, well, they're all gross, in their own way.
Yeah.
But if there's something like we feel like you could provide some other cool insight on, that would be kind of neat to have you on the podcast again.
I'd love to be back. This is fun.
Yeah. Yes.
This was great.
What are you doing for Halloween?
Yeah.
Anything? Anything fun?
I mean, with the kids, we have our matching costumes, which we went basic this year. We're rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, but no, that's
Cute.
awesome.
That's cool.
It's not basic. That's actually really clever.
I literally buy them to match with me. So like last year, because they don't want to, they want to be the creepy, gory clown or whatever. And I'm like, but that's not cute. And I don't want to dress like that. So last year the blonde one and I were Minions. And then my dark haired one was Gru.
That's
I
awesome.
love that.
Yeah. So that's it. We'll just go trick-or-treating. We have friends who always have a huge like block party, and it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Nice. Well, stay safe. Have fun. Next on the podcast, we are going to talk about Whittingham Hospital in England, and we're going to have another recruiter guest on there. So,
That's the one with the railway system.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just getting everything super mixed up. But it's a very busy time of year. All right, Stacy, thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Talk to you later.
See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Murder.
That was cool.
Thank you for listening to Healthcare Horrors, brought to you by Atlas MedStaff. Just a reminder, we are not healthcare professionals. We are just fans of true crime, talking about some of history's darkest moments in healthcare. Stay tuned, stay healthy, and stay safe.